My husband saw the red duffel bag just minutes before we were about to cross the border. He turned to me, calm, pale, and certain, and said 5 words that changed everything. Turn the car around. Now. No panic, no explanation, just certainty. I didn't ask questions, I didn't argue. I took the next exit. And I'll never forget what we found in that bag, or what it revealed about the people who gave it to us. People I once called family. My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 39 years old, a mom of 3, and until that day, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I imagined it came from bad friends or strained marriages. Maybe a lie that grows over time. But not this. Not something smiling and zipped inside a piece of luggage, handed to me by the people who raised me. I always thought I was the cautious one, the reliable one, the daughter who made the right choices. My husband, Mark, is calm, deliberate, never the type to overreact. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Or so I believed. That morning started like any other. The kids were cranky, the coffee was lukewarm. We were running 5 minutes behind, but still, somehow, ahead of disaster. We had our bags packed, juice boxes, cereal bars, 3 kids in the back seat tangled in neck pillows and cartoon noise. We were headed a few hours north, just across the border to a family reunion. Shake hands, smile through the awkward small talk, pretend the potato salad wasn't a crime. Just another routine drive, just another obligation to check off. Looking back, I realized there were signs, but sometimes life doesn't wave red flags. Sometimes it hands you a red bag and dares you to open it. The morning had been the usual mess, half packed, half forgotten. I was juggling juice boxes and forgotten toothbrushes while the kids turned our living room into a sock battlefield. Mark was calm, sipping coffee like we weren't late. That was his way. Always grounded, always steady. The kids, 5, 7, and 10, were finally tucked into the back seat like 3 cranky puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit. Matching neck pillows, cartoon voices buzzing, and a full-blown debate over who crossed the imaginary seat line. I was driving. I always drive. I get motion sick when I'm not in control, and Mark's habit of braking at the last possible second, that would have finished me. So I drive. That's our system. About 20 minutes from the Canadian border, I remember glancing at the clock and thinking, we're actually on time. That might have been the last time I felt in control. The plan was simple. Cross the border, smile through the family reunion, survive awkward hugs and half-burnt barbecue, then drive home. Nothing wild, just a few days of pretending. And then Mark shifted in his seat. It was so small, I almost missed it. One moment he was sipping his coffee. The next, he froze. Not tense, not afraid, just still. He turned to me, his voice low, almost too quiet to hear over the kids. Turn the car around. I blinked, laughed nervously. What? His expression didn't change. His eyes didn't move. Please, Rachel, turn around now. There was no fear in his voice. That made it worse. Mark doesn't panic. Ever. So when he says, turn around, you don't wait for a third warning. You just turn the wheel, because some moments don't come with explanations, only consequences. I eased onto the exit ramp, the very last one before the border. It curved off gently, like the road itself was offering us a second chance we didn't know we needed. Mark didn't say a word, but I noticed something shift in him. His shoulders dropped just slightly, like he'd been bracing for something, and now, maybe, we'd swerved past it. Not fully, but enough. The silence in the car thickened. Not peaceful, heavy. Like the air between us was waiting for someone to speak, but no one wanted to break it. I glanced at Mark again. He was staring straight ahead, hands folded in his lap, jaw tight. I wanted to ask. I didn't. Something in his eyes said the answer would shake something loose, and I wasn't ready for that. Then came the question from the back seat. Are we going the wrong way? My middle one asked, her little voice cutting through the quiet like a thread. We forgot something, I said without thinking. What did we forget? Came another voice. Is it the snacks? My youngest chimed in, completely serious. I managed a soft smile, but my stomach twisted, because I already knew we hadn't forgotten anything. We'd been given something dangerous. We drove for miles, nothing but trees on either side, the hum of the tires barely masking my pulse. The deeper we went, the more the sky opened up, but it didn't feel free. It felt like we were slipping into something unknown. Then finally, Mark spoke again. Take the next turn off. No emotion, no urgency, just direction. And in that moment, I understood something without having to ask. This wasn't a detour. It was an escape route. And whatever we were running from was behind us. But not for long. The turnoff led us down a road I wouldn't have noticed if Mark hadn't told me to take it. No sign, no markings, just cracked pavement and shoulderless edges, winding into a wall of trees that looked like they hadn't been disturbed in years. It felt like a road meant for disappearing. We followed it in silence. No music, no small talk, just the distant hum of tires and the buzz of cartoons still playing in the back seat. Our kids, unaware of the storm, quietly gathering in the front. Then Mark said, almost in a whisper, "Pull over." I did. He unbuckled slowly. Every movement looked deliberate, like he wasn't just acting, he was preparing. "Stay here," he said, his voice calm but absolute. I nodded, even though my heart was pounding. I watched him walk to the back of the car. The trunk opened, but I couldn't see anything from the driver's seat, just the lift of the lid and the sudden rush of cold air. My hands were sweating. My brain was spinning. Was something wrong with the car? With the bag? With us? I sat still, gripping the wheel like it might keep the world from falling apart. Seconds ticked by like minutes. Then Mark reappeared at my window. His face was pale but sure. "Can you come out here?" he asked. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He just looked tired. Tired in the way people get when they've carried a secret too long and finally decided to put it down. I stepped out. My legs were shaky. He led me to the trunk. He didn't speak, just reached in and unzipped the red duffel bag. He folded back a sweatshirt, one I'd seen my dad wear a dozen times, and underneath it, nestled between layers of clothes meant to look innocent, were several tightly sealed plastic packets. I didn't have to ask what they were. I just knew. They weren't snacks. They weren't vitamins. They weren't anything that belonged in a family SUV headed toward a peaceful reunion. They were trouble, the kind of trouble that ends with headlines, lawyers, handcuffs, the kind of trouble that doesn't just stain your name. It detonates your life. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared into the bag like it had swallowed the floor beneath me. Mark said nothing. He didn't need to. "They put that in our car," I finally whispered. He nodded once, quiet, certain, with our kids in the back seat. Another nod. I looked up at the sky, still blue, still calm, like it hadn't gotten the memo that everything had changed. I hated that it looked like a good day. It felt wrong. "How did you know?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the bag, like it was still open inside his mind. "When your dad handed it to me this morning," he said finally, he smiled. But it wasn't nervous. It was satisfied, like it was already done. I took a slow step back. The gravel beneath my shoes crunched too loudly, like it belonged to another scene. It wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. And in that moment, something in me split open. Because we hadn't just dodged a crisis. We had almost walked straight into it, with 3 innocent kids strapped in behind us. And that red duffel? It was never meant to be opened. Not by us. Neither of us spoke. Mark zipped the bag shut with a gentleness that made it even more terrifying, like he was sealing a bomb. He placed it back in the trunk with the same care you'd give to something that could ruin everything if dropped. And maybe it already had. We climbed back into the car. The kids were still giggling in the back seat, noses buried in cartoons and stuffed animals. Oblivious. Safe. For now. I put the car in drive. No destination. Just away. My hands trembled on the wheel. Every time I blinked, I saw those packets. Every time I breathed, I felt the betrayal settle deeper into my chest. Then my phone buzzed. Mom, then Dad, again and again. Their names kept lighting up my screen like alarms I didn't need. I didn't answer. Mark didn't either. We already knew the script. Where are you? What happened? Is everything okay? Where's the bag? They didn't want to know if we were safe. They wanted to know if the plan had failed. We kept driving, mile after mile of blank highway and broken trust. I didn't know where we were going. But somehow, Mark and I made the same decision at the same time. We turned the car toward my parents' house. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was precision. I pulled into their driveway. Their porch light was still on, glowing like a lie in broad daylight. We didn't speak. I reached beneath the old garden mat. The fake rock was still there, just like it had been since I was 12, still taped with a spare key, still pretending to be useful. Mark opened the door. We walked inside, dropped the red duffel just inside the hallway, untouched, unspoken. Then we locked the door behind us and left it there like a message. Later that night, after the kids had drifted to sleep and the house fell into that soft, sacred kind of quiet only parents recognize, we sat on the couch. Mark didn't say anything. Neither did I. We didn't have to. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was survival. Then the phone rang. Just once. I didn't look. I already knew who it was. The second time it rang, I answered. My mother's voice came through too sweet, too cheerful, like someone calling about muffins instead of near felony betrayal. "Oh, honey, we were so worried. You just disappeared." I didn't respond. She continued, syrupy and soft. "Is everything okay?" Then, just a flicker of edge in her tone. "Where's the bag?" There it was, the only question that actually mattered to her. Not, "Are the kids okay?" Not, "Are you safe?" Just the bag. I let the silence linger until it stung. Then I said, steady as steel, "We dropped it off at your house." "Nothing." "If it was that important," I added, "maybe you should have taken it yourself." That landed. I heard it. Not in words, but in the catch of her breath. The moment she realized I knew, and that I wasn't afraid. No yelling, no drama, just a truth laid bare between us. "We're not doing this," I said. "Don't call again." And I hung up. No apology, no goodbye. Just the clean snap of a cord that should have been cut years ago. For a moment it felt final, like maybe the danger was behind us. But 2 days later, on an unremarkable Wednesday afternoon, the doorbell rang. And without even moving, I knew exactly who it was. Because guilt doesn't knock gently. It returns with a smile and expectations. I didn't need to check the peephole. I could feel it. There's a certain pressure that seeps through a front door when people show up carrying unspoken guilt and a twisted sense of entitlement. It fills the air like static. I stepped outside and closed the door firmly behind me. My parents stood there like they hadn't just tried to ruin our lives. Like they were just dropping by with coffee and conversation. My mom wore that tight practice smile she used at PTA meetings, the one that looked warm if you didn't look too closely. My dad stood slightly behind her, hands in his pockets, like he didn't know whether to beg or bluff. "We just wanted to check in," my mom said softly, as if we'd missed a lunch date instead of narrowly avoiding an international drug charge. "We thought maybe we could clear the air," my dad added. I didn't speak. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. My mom hesitated, then offered, "We weren't sure how much you understood." There it was, Not a denial, just a test, a way to gauge how far they could push without admitting what they'd done. You mean the bag? I asked quietly. Neither of them answered. You put it in our car, I said, with your grandchildren in the back seat. My mom blinked, no tears. Still hits emotionally, keeps it lean. We didn't think it would be a big deal. It wasn't going to be anything serious, my dad added. Just something to help us with the debt. We were desperate, she said. And you wouldn't help. There it was, the fallback excuse. Like betrayal was my fault for setting boundaries. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just said, you didn't just betray me. You risked your grandchildren's lives. And that was unforgivable. They didn't answer. Because there was no answer that could make that okay. My dad shifted his weight like a man who wanted to vanish without admitting fault. My mom stared at the ground, eyes dry, searching for sympathy she hadn't earned. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. We're done, I said. No anger, no tears, just finality. Don't call, don't come here. You don't get to see the kids. This ends now. My mom opened her mouth. I knew the script, the usual lines. You're being dramatic. You'll regret this. You always overreact. But instead, she gave me that same smile, the one that never touched her eyes, and said, You'll come around. You always do. That line didn't hit the way she thought it would, because for the first time in my life, I knew she was wrong. I didn't say another word. I turned, walked back inside, and locked the door behind me. No second thoughts, no guilt. I was done. Fully. Finally. Done. And for a brief moment, I let myself believe that was the last chapter. But I should have known better. Because 3 days later, I pulled into the school parking lot like I always did. On time, a little tired, ready to hear about snack trades and spelling tests. Until I saw the teacher's face. Confused, apologetic. Oh, she said. Your parents already picked them up about an hour ago. I blinked. What? They said you asked them to. My stomach dropped like a stone. I didn't ask questions. I just ran. Because in that moment, everything else faded. The air, the traffic, the rules. There was only one thought in my mind. What are they telling my children? I don't remember driving. Not the turns. Not the red lights. Not the route. I remember the roar of the engine and the way my chest felt like it was folding in on itself. My fingers ached from how tightly I gripped the wheel. The only thing repeating in my mind was, what are they saying to my kids? When I pulled up, I knew I was too late. The house looked like a party had exploded inside. Streamers in the trees, balloons tied to the railing. Through the window, I saw flashes of wrapping paper and flashing toys. I pushed the door open and stepped into a scene that should have been joyful. But it wasn't. There they were, my 3 children, high on sugar and unaware of what had just happened. My youngest was giggling, cradling a stuffed bear. The older 2 were laughing on the floor with my dad, buried in Lego kits we'd never approved, never bought. My mom stood at the kitchen island, calmly slicing cake like she hadn't just crossed the ultimate line. They all looked up when they saw me. Mommy, one of them shouted, beaming. Look what Grandma gave us. I didn't smile, because I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't love. It wasn't generosity. It was strategy. This wasn't a party. It was a bribe. They had never done anything like this before, not even close. But now, suddenly, after we cut them off, they were pretending to be the kind of grandparents they'd never once shown up as. The kind that give instead of take. The kind that soothe instead of sabotage. I stood there watching my kids glow with excitement, and I felt a fire build inside me. They were using my children to pull me back in. And this time, I wasn't playing along. Can we keep the toys? One of them asked, clutching that stuffed bear like it meant something more than it did. I hesitated, just for a second. I could feel their eyes on me. My parents waiting, hoping I'd say no. hoping I'd be the villain who ruined the moment, the strict mother, the ungrateful daughter, but I didn't give them that win. Yes, I said quietly, you can keep them. Not because they deserved to, but because my kids didn't deserve to be caught in the fallout. We gathered the bags and headed toward the car, my children still buzzing with excitement, their arms filled with plastic toys and candy wrappers. And just as I buckled them in, my mother's voice drifted down the driveway. Soft, sing-song, false. "They'll come back to us," she said. "They always do." She said it like a prophecy, like she believed it was already true. But this time I didn't look back. That night there was no shouting, no pacing, no dramatic spiral. Just me, sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at Mark across the room, and saying what we both already knew. We have to go. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. You mentioned North Carolina, I said. Your company has an office there. Your parents live there. I wasn't ready before. I took a breath. I am now. He nodded. The transfer's still on the table. Good, I said. And that was it. No more negotiations, no more second chances. Just a quiet, mutual decision to burn the bridge and never walk that road again. We weren't running away. We were choosing peace. And finally, we were ready to protect it. North Carolina was quieter than I expected. Not just the streets or the trees, but life itself. The silence wasn't hollow anymore. It was full of breath, full of choice, full of mornings that didn't begin with dread. The kids started school. They made new friends. Mark's parents lived 20 minutes away and actually showed up to babysit, to help, to care. No manipulation, no guilt, just kindness that didn't come with a price tag. We blocked numbers. We didn't explain. We disappeared. Not to hide, but to heal. And slowly, the noise in my head, the doubt, the worry, the what-ifs, started to fade. It wasn't gone, but it no longer dictated the pace of my days. Still, every now and then, I check my phone out of habit. Not to reply, just to brace. Then one day it rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Later, I listened to the voicemail. It was a cousin I barely talked to. "Your mom says she doesn't know where you are. She's upset. Says you just cut everyone off. I don't know what happened, but family matters." I didn't call back. I didn't explain. Because I finally understood. Peace doesn't owe anyone an explanation. My family isn't defined by who shares my DNA. It's defined by who respects my boundaries. And just when I started to believe we were truly free, when the noise had finally faded into nothing, another message came in. But it wasn't a voicemail, it was an email from my sister. Subject line, emergency. Please read. And as soon as I saw it, I knew. The chaos was reaching out again. But this time it would find me changed. I stared at the subject line for a long time. Emergency, please read. I hovered over delete, thought about it. But curiosity, maybe closure, won. I opened it. The message was frantic, rushed, filled with typos and panic. Our parents had been arrested. No middlemen this time, no innocent scapegoats, just them, their car, and a trunk full of product, trying to cross the border alone. And they got caught, officially. Possession with intent to distribute, attempting to smuggle across an international line. It wasn't enough for headlines, but it was enough for prison. At the bottom of the email, my sister wrote, "They need help. They don't have money for a lawyer. This is serious. You have to show up. You're still family." I read that line 3 times. You're still family. Not they're sorry. Not they finally understand. Just another reach. Another ask. Another guilt-wrapped invitation to fix what they broke. But I wasn't that person anymore. So I hit reply, and I wrote, I did show up. Once. I'm not doing it again. Then I clicked send. And just like that, I closed the door for good. I haven't heard anything since. But the whispers still find their way back. Cousins, old friends, people who think time rewrites what happened. They were sentenced 4 years each, not a lifetime, but long enough to sit with their choices, if they're capable of it. Me? I sleep better. Mark does too. The kids don't flinch when the phone rings. And I don't translate guilt into silence anymore. We didn't disappear. We escaped. I don't regret the boundary. Not for a second. But sometimes in the quiet, I still ask myself, did I go too far? Or not far enough? Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is close the door for good. Let me know what you think. Did I make the right call? Leave a comment. I read every single one. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't just about what you survive. They're about finally knowing when to walk away